To me, it made no sense at all to make an entry-level camera so big and thick. Hi and welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven and I am just a guy who loves cameras and photography and making content in general. For today's video, it is gear talk again. So about a few weeks ago, early or mid-November, Nikon announced their first Expeed 7 entry-level APSC camera, the Nikon Z50 Mark II, which goes for about $900, including the kit lens, which was actually pretty affordable given what you are getting. But at the same time, there were a lot of unhappy people on the internet for legitimate reasons, and I am going to give my own thoughts by the end of today's video. Obviously, I do not have the camera in my own hands. I have not purchased one yet, and I am not a YouTuber who is big enough to receive gear to review them. But there are two interesting observations I noted, which I would love to discuss in today's video. Only these two things. Number one, the size of the camera, and number two, the old 21 megapixel sensor from the Nikon D500, which first came out back in year 2016. That was like 8 or 9 years ago. Okay, the size of the Nikon Z50 Mark II, it was weird to me. Why is the camera so big and so thick? I was pretty surprised when I watched Kai Wong's video on the Nikon Z50 Mark II. That was the first time I noted how big and thick the camera is. I mean, he compared the Z50 to Z50 Mark II side by side, and the new camera is a lot thicker. So I asked myself, are we missing out on something over here, right? The most common assumption we all have are that Nikon is trying to prevent overheating, because the Nikon Z30 at least, which I used to own one, that camera does have overheating issues. We are looking at 20 minutes of 4K 30p video before it shuts off from overheating, and that is in 80 degrees Fahrenheit. 80 degrees for you guys in the US, 27 Celsius over here, right? So 27 Celsius is our room temperature, and the older Z30, presumably the ZFC as well right here, it will only last 20 minutes in 4K 30 before it shuts off. So maybe Nikon buffed up the camera to prevent overheating once and for all. That is a possibility. The second possibility is that maybe Nikon made the camera bigger because you need a bigger body to balance a bigger lens. Because in my opinion, while the Z50 Mark II may have an older sensor and no IBIS, it is possibly one of the best bargain buys for people who are interested in wildlife or bird photography. A dedicated bird AF mode from the Nikon Z9 and Z8, in combination with the D500 sensor, which was a sports and high-speed camera to begin with, as well as 12 frames per second mechanical. For all this, for $900, this is a legitimate option for bird photographers, for wildlife photographers, regardless of whether they are buying their first camera on the budget or they are seasoned photographers looking for a second body. The Z50 Mark II is still a legitimate option at just $900. But what if the new big and thick body we saw in the Z50 Mark II is actually a hint that a pro body is coming soon from Nikon? Yes, a Pro DX body. To me, it made no sense at all to make an entry-level camera so big and thick. It feels like that body was designed with IBIS in mind, just that the Z50 Mark II is supposed to be cheap and affordable, so there is no IBIS inside the camera, but they are saving it for higher-end body that cost maybe $1,500 US. That is what I'm thinking right now. I mean, if you were to ask me this question just a month ago, will Nikon make a D500 replacement, a $1,500 to $2,000 APS-C body, pro body? My answer to that question would be a flat out no. I don't think Nikon is going to do it because Nikon has always mentioned that they are focusing on full frame, right? Bigger profit margin. But now that I see the way the Z50 Mark II is being designed, I'm not so sure anymore. I think a Pro DX body is coming. And even though personally I'm not interested in such a camera, I really wish that it happens because it will make a lot of people happy. Yeah. Moving on to the next part, the old sensor, the 20.9 megapixel sensor, which is the same one in the Z50, in the ZFC right here, and also the Z30, which I have one as well, and also the Nikon D7500, Nikon D500 from year 2016. So this is an 8 to 9 year old sensor, and in my opinion, using an old sensor in an entry-level camera body is fine, right? To keep the camera as low cost as possible. My problem isn't the 20 megapixel resolution that is more than enough for casual photography and posting on social media. My problem is the slow readout speed, making it incompetent in video when compared to the competition. So for a camera that was announced in late 2024, the 4K 60p video is cropped by 1.5 times. Meanwhile, the 2-year-old Canon R10, which cost a similar amount, can do 4K 60p video without any crop, which is weird because Nikon has been making a major push in video in the recent 2 years or so. The Nikon Z8 was so good, 8K 60p, that is why I bought one. But why is the video spec in the Z50 Mark II so underwhelming? Because of the old sensor, obviously. It is not competitive at all. Maybe Nikon is aiming the Z50 Mark II at photographers rather than the real hybrid people, I don't know. But the cropped 4K 60p is a big major reason why I wouldn't buy one. If you ask me, will I buy a Z50 Mark II? My answer is no, solely for the cropped 4K 60. If it was uncropped, then the camera is a lot more appealing to me because I need 60 frames per second to do a 2x slow-mo for certain B-rolls, for example. Yeah. So, can I recommend a Z50 Mark II? For still photographers looking to photograph birds and wildlife, I think it is still a very good option, in fact, right? It is designed for that purpose, even though the weather sealing is not up to snuff, not as good as the D500, but today, in year 2024, if I were looking to photograph some birds out there, I would still choose a Z50 Mark II over a pre-owned D500 because of the Nikon 180 to 600mm zoom lens. If you buy a D500, you have the f-mount 200 to 500, you get an equivalent 750mm, and there is no IBIS anyways. If I'm using a Z50 Mark II, I can use the new 180 to 600 and I get 900mm equivalent. And the autofocus is going to be way better than D500 because, you know, the autofocus points in mirrorless cameras, it covers the entire viewfinder, and there is bird AF mode. So I would take a Z50 Mark II over a D500 any time of the day. As for everyone else, if you want to keep waiting for another year or so, I think it is a wise idea to wait because it is never a good idea to buy a new camera right after launch and pay full price for it, wait for 6 months to 1 year, and then the street price will come down a bit. If Nikon does not launch a Pro DX model, then go ahead and buy the Z50 Mark II with a $100 discount. That is what I personally think. So maybe it is worth waiting. It is a camera that I want, but I don't need. I mean, I am a content creator. I would love to get my hands on a Z50 Mark II and review it on YouTube, but it is certainly a camera that I don't need. So that is my thoughts on the new Nikon Z50 Mark II regarding the body size. Very curious about it. And the old sensor. What do you think about the Z50 Mark II? Will you buy one? Let me know down in the comments below. Until then, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you guys soon. Goodbye.